Put the needle on the record.
For the lead.
Oh, yeah! Jalen Brunson from downtown.
Well, the New York Knicks, they are rolling along. This is Tim. This is New York Knicks Unleashed. This is going to be our first podcast, or I should rephrase that. Everyone knows me from Online Big Blue, doing the New York Giants stuff, but I've always been a Knicks fan. I've been a Knicks fan forever. So I always wanted to put together a weekly or a bi-weekly podcast just talking about all New York Knicks stuff. And this is going to be kind of I don't want to say the test podcast, but this is going to be the one that's going to get us up and rolling. We're going to make sure that these podcasts are a little bit longer than the Giant ones. We're probably going to do about 30, 40 minutes. That's why we're going to do at least bi-weekly on the Knicks. But the Knicks, of course, are rolling right now with their fourth win in a row. We had that big win over the Toronto Raptors. Oh, poor RJ Barrett. 139-125. You know, this team, the Knicks are doing what they're supposed to be doing in 19-10. They've had their moments, they've had their hiccups, but they're beating the teams they need to beat. They're hanging tough on teams that they need to play tough against. You know, you had that aberration against early in the beginning of the season against that game against the Boston Celtics, where, you know, that opening season blowout. But the Knicks are a team that they are a team that is built for now. They are a team that understands, you know, how to put the pedal to the metal. Yes, people will say, well, the Toronto Raptors yesterday came back and had 43 points in that fourth quarter, but the Knicks only 28. But you also need to remember that the Knicks, between two quarters, between the second and the third, put up 81 points. If you want to say anything about this Knicks team, you have to be concerned about the bench. And we've talked about the bench before. Your starting five: Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby, Karl Anthony Towns, Jalen Brunson, Josh Hart. Probably one of the best starting fives in the league. I would say at least in the top three. I would like to see a little bit more on the offensive rebounding end outside of OG Anunoby and Karl Anthony Towns. I would like to see a little bit more scoring off the bench. I would like to see a little bit more toughness off the bench in reference to the center position. It's not that I don't like Jericho Sims or Precious Achiuwa, but it's just, you know, you need Mitchell Robinson back, or you need to find a fully capable backup center. Karl Anthony Towns has just been the man. I mean, last night, 31 points, 10 rebounds, 7 assists. He also threw in a steal there with only one turnover. How many times have we seen the big man only get one turnover this season? It's amazing. And like I said, this defense at times for the Knicks, especially with these starting five, can be stifling. Karl Anthony Towns, the big cat, is not what you would refer to as a defensive stalwart. He's not going to get you that plethora of blocks, but he does enough to fill his role. They always use that sports cliche. He does all the little things. But the big cat does all the little things big. And, of course, you will always have Jalen Brunson. Jalen Brunson will always be that scorer, that influencer, that facilitator. I'm liking it more and more this year that he's really stepped up in reference to getting everyone involved. I mean, the last few years here in New York, he's had to kind of be the entire offense. He's right now has a career high in assists at 7.6. Last year it was 6.7. I mean, he's doing what he needs to do. His turnovers right now, Jalen has always had those issues with turnovers. He's right now having a career high at 2.5 a game, but he's also putting up 24 points. He's also, like I said, 7.8 assists right now. You know, you're looking at almost 3 rebounds a game. He's doing all the things that he does. He is the little engine that could. He's one of my favorite players going back to Bernard King. And yes, and anyone knows that I've spoke to in reference to the Knicks, or I've just spoke to in general, even on the Giant podcast. I am a Knick fan. The Giant podcast is more of a perspective of a Giant fan from the outside, actually giving, you know, the taking a look from the outside in and saying, okay, here are the things that are wrong with this team. I'm going to tell you right now, guys, on this podcast, I'm probably going to be a little bit more of a homer because I grew up on Knick basketball. I grew up on watching this team going back to the early 80s. One of my favorite players was Ken the Animal Bannister, number one. I just love the name Ken the Animal Bannister. I grew up with the likes of watching Rory Sparrow and Trent Tucker and Darrell Walker, and Bernard King. I was there when Bernard put up the 50 a couple times at the Garden. And it's just, I've always enjoyed playing basketball. While football was my passion in regards to playing because of the fact that I had the physical attributes. One things I've always told the story before, I was a 6'1" center. And I remember playing in a game, and we had another member that was being scouted, and after the game, the scout came over to me and said, "Hey, you know what? We'd be scouting you if you were 7 inches taller." And I told him, I said, "You know what? I'm going to work on that over the summer. I'm going to try to gain those extra 7, 8 inches." So it's always been like I said, it's always been a passion of mine, and you could tell that passion kind of falls into Mr. Bridges as well. When we made that trade, you kind of knew there was going to be another moving part to it. Did we think we were going to run out and get the big cat? No, we thought we were going to be running it with the Villanova boys. We thought it was going to be DiVincenzo, Hart, Brunson, and Bridges. But if you take a look at the way if you take a look at the way these guys play, especially Hart and Bridges, very similar players, very, very, very 3-and-D-esque. I remember going back, I remember watching Bridges and Villanova, just kind of being that guy at times. I think there was a game against Lafayette. I think it was, I think he had like 24 points in Lafayette, and he had something like he hit all 6 of his 3-pointers. I mean, he had big games at big moments in school. And like I said, the combination of everyone that played together was really something special to watch. As a junior, he won the Julius Erving Award for the best small forward in all of college basketball. He was that 3-and-D guy that could just shut you down and get the big points when needed, especially coming out of Villanova. And that's just the way he played, even with the plethora of talent they had on that Nova roster. He got selected. People forget at times that he was taken in the 10th selection in the first round by the Philadelphia 76ers. I remember him being selected by the Sixers. There was this jubilation. There was this excitement that this homegrown Philly product was going to stay and play. I mean, he's from Pennsylvania. I can't remember. I know he went to Great Valley High School in Pennsylvania. So, but there was this excitement. Then what do they do? What do the Sixers do? Because it's the perennial Sixers move. They turn around and they ship him out. Draft rights to, what's his name, Smith, and then a 2021 first-round pick. He joined the Suns. Of course, he went over to the Suns. And, he was part of a Suns team that, he really kind of had to find his way, especially early on. And he really did. I mean, if you take a look at the way his career went in Phoenix, I watched him a little bit in Phoenix. It's funny though, because you're over in Phoenix, you don't really see everything that's going to go on because of the fact that, how many people actually watch that Suns? He only averaged about 8 points the first season and then really 9 the second. It wasn't until that 2020-2021 season that he started blossoming a little bit, and then he really started making a name for himself. Over in 2022, 2023, when he was averaging over 17 points a game. He was showing that he could be this force. He was finally finding his footing in the NBA. And what do the Suns do, of course? Knock, knock, who's there? They ship him over to the Brooklyn Nets. That was over in February 9 of 2023. They traded him and Cameron Johnson and Crowder for 4 unprotected first-round picks and a 2028 first-round swap in exchange for Kevin Durant and TJ Warren. I mean, it was a good move for the Knicks. The Nets, because they found that guy. He became the guy in Brooklyn. They always say a tree grows in Brooklyn. He put up 44 on March 20th. But, of course, that was in a loss to the Orlando Magic. He had a career high of 45 in a win over the Heat that same year. He took home his first NBA Player of the Week for his entire career. That was the week the Nets went 3-0. He averaged 33 points, 5.7 rebounds, 3.75 assists, and 1.3 in the steals. He helped them make the playoffs. He was the driving force. He was the Iron Man. And then that second season rolled around in New York. It was New York. Brooklyn, I guess technically was in New York. Didn't have the same cachet. Like I said, that first 27 games of Brooklyn, they put up 26. They made the playoffs. Brooklyn then fell to what I think they only won 30 games in 2023, 2024. Bridges he was that first option. He put up that 19.5 or 19.6 points. Still played in 82 straight games, averaged about 35 minutes a night, but he just still didn't have that same thunder. Then the offseason rolls around, of course, and the Knicks make that big trade, give up all those picks. They had the full Nova Knicks in effect. But the question was going to be, how is this going to gel? How is this going to mold? Then you made the Randall DiVincenzo trade, which some Knicks fans were happy about. Some Knicks fans were not excited about. I liked Julius Randle. I like Julius rock the mic like a Randle extensively because I thought he played well. I thought he played with passion. Yes, he was a little bit sullen. He was a little bit truculent. But he was a guy that literally, if you watched him play, you could see he played with heart. And at times you could see he played through the pain. And we were on that. Well, I think we were 13-2 on that roll when we first picked up OG Anunoby. And then he went down with the shoulder injury. And you knew right away he hurt his shoulder the way he fell. That was Randall. But once you made that trade, you were kind of looking at it like, okay, Bridges is going to have to take over not only a little bit of the DiVincenzo role, but he's also going to take over a little bit of the Hart role. And if you look at the way the season progressed, I mean, it was not a great first month in New York. I mean, he averaged 14.7. He looked lost at times in the offense. He was only shooting about 43%. You're looking at a guy that was only bringing in about 4 rebounds and 3 assists and only a steal a game. He just did not look the same as he did in that first season in Brooklyn. And people were already crying that he was a bust. That he wasn't putting it together the right way. He was a bust. He was not looking right. We got bamboozled by sending over all those picks. And I kept telling people at the Garden, I said, listen, you got to let him get into the flow. You got to remember for the last year and a half, he was the number one option in New York, in Brooklyn. He was the number one option. He was the guy the offense facilitated through. Here in New York, he will be the third option at best, and sometimes even the fourth. Because you figured Jalen was, before the season started, you figured it was going to be Jalen, you figured it was going to be Cat, and then you figured it was going to be Bridges. Well, at times, OG Anunoby's been putting up some big numbers. And hell, even Josh Hart has his moments, his explosions of offensive performances. So I think early on, Bridges was just trying to find his way. He was trying to build his own bridge. He was bridging himself over to that next level. How many more cliches can we put in there about Bridges? I don't know. I could probably think of a couple more. So when the month of December rolled around, something kind of clicked. And you could see it. He found his flow in the offense. I always go back to that December 1st game against the Pelicans. Yes, and I understand it's the Pelicans. The Knicks took that game 118-85. He went 12 for 19, 7 for 12 from 3 for 31 points. And he kind of built off that momentum. He found this flow in the offense. His minutes started going up. All of a sudden he was going for, low 30s to 36, 36, 47, 38, 41, 38, 41, 36, 45, 41. And there was talk at times that his defense was lacking as well, because there was a couple games in November that he was pulled in reference to the end of the game, sometimes the final 6, 7, 8 minutes, because of his fact that his defensive fortitude was not there. He had problems. He had issues. And so they always say you got to play that hot hand. But even defensively, if you don't have that hot hand offensively, you should hopefully be able to put up or be the stopper that you were basically acquired to be. And that's what Tibbs kind of did. He kind of pulled. There was a couple games in November he pulled Bridges because of the fact that he just wasn't. He was also not performing on the end defensively. But like I said, that kind of also shifted a little bit in that Orlando game back on the 3rd. He once again put up 19 points, but he started becoming that defensive stopper. And then ever since the month of like I said, since the end of that month of November, he's rolled a little bit in New York, averaging 20 points in December. You're looking at 3.5 assists, almost 3 rebounds. His assists, he's almost at 1.5 steals a game. He's still, and that's the other thing I like about Bridges. He doesn't turn the ball over as much, especially for a guy that can have the ball in his hands quite extensively. Only 1.8 turnovers per game on average. He became that defensive stalwart. He became the 3-and-D guy. He found his flow in the offense. And his shots really had not gone up. If you take a look at his average shots per game from the month of November to December, November, he only shot 14. He shot the ball 14.5 times a game. In December, only 15. Now, his completion percentage, his shot percentage went up. He went up, shooting from 50. What was he shooting? Shooting 43% to 56. So he found his stroke. He found his shot again. He found his defensive ability. Like I said, that game in Minnesota on the 19th, where he put up 29 and went 12 for 18, 4 from 8 from 3. He was unstoppable at times. And again, the offense, while not flowing through Bridges, he became an extension of the offense. He became a branch off of the big cat tree. And that's what you need him to be, and that's what you need him to do. I remember when Bernard King first came to the Knicks. There was all this speculation that he was going to be something special in New York. That the Knicks had made one of those moves that it was going to be something different. And this was a guy that, if you looked at it, the way he played over with the Golden State Warriors, he only averaged 21 points a game. I believe he was an all-star in 80. But it was just, we had to get rid of Michael Ray Richardson because of the drug issues and everything else. But Michael Ray Richardson will always have my favorite comments during that playoff implosion, or that road to the playoff implosion, when they asked him how things were going, and he looked at the camera and said, "Did the ship be sinking?" So they had to move over him in. But it was in February of 81 that the King made history, becoming the first player since Rick Barry in 1967, to score at least 50 points in consecutive games. He scored 50 points on 20 for 30 and 10 free throws. And that was a victory over the San Antonio Spurs. Then he followed it up with another 50-point performance in Dallas. And like I said, I talk about it all the time, and I don't want to bore people, but I want to pontificate about the Knicks. Christmas Day, 1984. It was one of those games that I thought my father was crazy when he's like, "Come on, we're going to the Knicks game." I'm like, and I thought my mother was going to kill us. And I'm like, "What do you mean we're going to the Knicks game?" He's like, "We're going to the Knicks game." He's like, "I have tickets under the basket for the Knicks." And I was like, "Okay." So parts of my family, my father, myself, we went to the Knicks game, and that was on Christmas Day, 1984. King put up 60 points in a losing effort against the New Jersey Nets. And he became just the 10th player in NBA history to score 60 or more points in a single game. He scored 40 by halftime. We thought he was going after Wilt. We thought he was going after those big numbers. He finishes the game, though, 19 for 30 from the field. He was 22 of 26 from the free throw line. It was one of those games. It was you were kind of hoping it was a miracle on 34th Street, but it wasn't, because, like I said, they dropped that game. But it was just so exciting and so fun to watch. Even, it's funny, even when the Knicks are bad, and I'm talking early 2000s, I'm talking Isaiah Thomas, Starberry, I'm talking those days, I'm talking those, what's her name, Anuka Brown Sanders, I'm talking all those days that just made you want to cry. The Knicks I always enjoyed going to the Garden. The Knicks are always fun to watch. You go to the Giants, and it's just like, you don't, after they tore down the Meadowlands, it's just like you don't want to be there. But there's just something special about the Garden. And I always laugh because I remember a game towards the end of the season. I can't remember what year it was. Former center Brad Wright actually fell into the stands and he landed on me, and I broke 2 fingers. And I wasn't. I was still a kid, and I laughed though because of the day that I literally sat there with the Knick game with 2 broken fingers after Brad Wright fell on top of me, and I didn't care. I didn't care. I was like, and everyone was like, "Are you all right? Are you all right?" I was like, "I am not going to the hospital. I'm not going anywhere until we watch the end of this game." No, Knick passion, Knicks fun, Knicks excitement's coming on strong. We're gonna have interviews. We're gonna have guests. We're gonna do everything really fun here. Hope you enjoyed this first kind of on Christmas Eve broadcast, a little bit, or podcast, whatever you want to call it. We're going to post this up on the New York Giant channel as well. But like I said, you can also find it on Knicks Unleashed, everywhere that podcasts are going to be hosted or wherever you can find podcasts. Just make sure you check out for it. Make sure you subscribe because, like I said, we will be putting it up here on the online Big Blue channel as well. So make sure you subscribe to the channel to get all your Knick news. And this is Tim. This is New York Knicks Unleashed. And I'm out of here.